Hello, I'm Robin Gibson, and this is the Harvard House Money Morsel. Welcome back. Thank you for joining us. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Click the bell so you get a notification of when we're releasing a new video. I'm back from leave, and I'm sitting today with Michael Porter. Hello, Michael.
Yeah, morning, Robin. Welcome back.
Yeah, it was good that Jana deputized for me while I was away. So, Michael, life carries on. We went on holiday, even though there's a standoff in the Middle East, shall we call it. It's so easy to get fixated. It is the big news. We continue to look at what's happening in that space. But the world carries on, just like I went on a holiday, and didn't really think too much about that. The world carries on. So what's happening around that? I think there's been some news in America around the Mag 7 or whatever you want to call them. Tell us what's happening in the tech
Definitely,
space.
Robin. I mean, if you look around the world, you wouldn't think, if you looked at all the headlines on the war and the impact on oil prices, you wouldn't think that US markets were at record highs, would you? I mean, you wouldn't put those two sentences together. No. US markets are essentially at record highs at the moment, and it was all driven by the big tech guys last week. So there was a bit of angst going into it. I think, on the one hand, there was a bit of nervousness. Anthropic, it wasn't Anthropic, but I just lost the name out of the top of my head, sorry, but OpenAI, was just guiding that there was an internal memo going around that they'd missed some of their internal targets, and the market got a little bit nervous on the AI sort of side and what's going on. And then big tech hit. Microsoft, Amazon, Alphabet, they all reported last Wednesday. And growth was strong, cloud growth was very strong, AI compute was strong, and the market loved it, And I think exactly that, Robin. It's there's a lot of headlines going around, and there's focus on war, but the rest of the world just carries on, and we say it often. You still go on holiday, you still go to the supermarket. I still had kids rugby on the weekend, and looking after kids' parties and things like that. And the world just carries on, and people make decisions, and life continues. But behind all the scenes, the AI tech revolution is continuing. And I think there is a bit of nervousness. But one of the big beneficiaries as well was also Caterpillar. They reported. And the stock sort of surged 8 or 9% on the day. It's got nothing to do with the mining side.
Lots of machinery to.
Yeah, it's not the mining side; it's the energy side and the generators and trying to power all these data centers and take pressure off the grid and make sure that you have permanent backup power. So Robin, I think it's just a great lesson in the fact that we all focus on the headlines and we can get very fixated on all the news, but sometimes it's just worthwhile to take a step back. Take a deep breath in and just look a little bit wider as what's happening. It's not to say that the war's not going to have an impact. Of course it is, and we can talk about that. But behind the scenes, people just get on with it.
So, Michael, let's talk about, what's been surprising. We were just talking off camera now about how sanguine the oil market is actually, given where things are. But there is still some pain coming. We're going to have some pain at the pumps. I think I saw a five rand increase in diesel coming now in May. We're still going to feel some pain, even though we're not necessarily going into a long-term high inflation environment. There's still going to be some short-term pain to come, isn't there?
Yeah, definitely. I think the whole world's grappling with high petrol prices, and I'm sure everybody's seen lots of different memes on getting robbed at the pump and things like that, and it's hurting everybody. So that's the short-term impact, Robin. I think the longer-term impact is relatively contained, and I think generally everybody's surprised at how sanguine the oil price is. If you'd painted the scenario, Straits of Hormuz closed for 8 or 9, 10 weeks now, you wouldn't have the oil price at $110. You'd have it $150 or $175. So I think that actually it hasn't been as bad as anticipated, but it's not to say that it still has an impact. And obviously there's ructions within OPEC, UAE pulling out last week. OPEC over the weekend raising their output, although that's a more ceremonial thing, really. I think than as long as the straits closed, it doesn't really mean much. But I think it's more just signaling intent. And yes, Robin, the Federal Reserve met last week. I think generally central banks have been, they also don't know how long the war's going to last, but they've been a little bit restrained. They can see there's an inflation bump coming. I'm not sure it's going to be quite as bad as the COVID inflation bump. And I don't think interest rates are going to react like that at all. But central banks are certainly signaling that maybe the next move in rates is up. But they've just been a little bit steady-handed, and they haven't been in a rush to hike rates.
Yes.
Obviously, because they also don't want to then, exacerbate a recession that's coming if it is coming. So
Yes.
I think everybody's been relatively measured and just sort of feeling their way a little bit.
Yeah.
I find it amusing that, on Friday, Trump said, hostilities with Iran have ended. And that's really got to do with the 60-day window where you need congressional approval to fund a war. I mean, smoke and mirrors, I tell you what, politicians the world over are all the same. But yeah, I mean, there's obviously talk this morning of America guiding ships through the Strait again. I mean, that hasn't worked previously. But I think markets are certainly looking at, we passed the peak hostility.
Yes.
How long it takes to get back to normal, and obviously the longer it lasts, the more damage is being done. But I think markets are just also being quite pragmatic, which is encouraging. But we are going to feel pain.
Yeah. So, Michael, just sort of touching, you touched on interest rates and Trump. End of an era at the Fed. I mean, the Fed met last week. End of an era. Jerome Powell on his way out.
So he's no longer the chair.
Big question mark over the new guy now.
Yeah.
Eh?
So Jerome also has indicated that he's going to stay on possibly for another 18 months until his term finishes. And it's also got to do with this probe into the Federal Reserve and then building the new, renovating their headquarters and things like that. And that's been dropped mysteriously. And funnily enough, again, in politics, we could sit here all day discussing the shenanigans going on.
Yeah.
But yes, I think the new guy coming in. I think what was interesting from the Federal Reserve was really a talk about keeping things stable or hiking. There wasn't really a lot of talk about cutting. And so I think that also just shifts the way, it just shows where the mood is changing. And we talked about it in our investment meetings, Robin. It's actually remarkable how resilient the US economy has been. They're feeling the pain on the pump and things like everybody else. But the jobs numbers are good. The unemployment numbers are good. Some of the consumer confidence numbers you would think would be a lot worse given where petrol prices are. It is remarkable how resilient it's been. I'm not sure that Europe is as resilient as the US, but the US is, it's not showing signs of strain at the moment. There might still be some to come, but it's the economy is pumping over there, and maybe that's also giving Trump a little bit more confidence that, and the market's at highs. He's quite sensitive to what the market does. The market's sort of at highs. It's probably giving him the courage to negotiate harder with Iran and not to buckle to some of the pressure because the markets are not reflecting it.
Amazing, isn't it?
It is
Michael,
amazing.
It's always good to talk to you and get some insights. So we could go down 1,000 different rabbit holes. But thank you for tuning in. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll catch you next time. Bye-bye.